Depth scoring, big dad energy, and of course, Jeremy Swayman propelled the Boston Bruins to Game 1 victory over the Florida Panthers.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be. Today is Tuesday, May 7th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and today we're in the top 30 for hockey podcasts in America, which is fantastic. Would love to see us get higher as the day goes on. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. Download Monopoly Go, now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Speaking of game on, the puck was dropped on game 1 of the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs last night. The Boston Bruins winning 5-1 over the heavily favored Florida Panthers in this series, coming out showing no rust, no fatigue. Heck, Brandon Carlo went from Boston, where he attended the birth of his new child, came to Florida, scored a goal in this one, and the Bruins have a 1-0 series lead. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts at ENC McLaren. If you're new to the podcast, I'm a lifelong Boston Bruins fan. I've been covering this team for various outlets for 20 years or so now. I was a full-time hockey news writer for The Score, and have since moved on to this podcast, which I've been hosting here now for almost 5 years. Thrilling win last night over the Florida Panthers in game 1, and it was depth scoring. That was one of the huge stories for the Boston Bruins last night. Now, it was scoreless for over 30 minutes in this one. You started to get the sense that, even they mentioned it on the Sportsnet broadcast. Maybe this is similar to games 5, 6, and 7 in the Toronto series where first goal wins kind of thing. And you kind of got the sense that things might be on Florida's side when you have David Pastrnak break in and have a clear hole that Sergei Bobrovsky opened. Instead of just sliding it in there, David Pastrnak kind of caught Bobrovsky in the ding-dong. And then later on, Matthew Tkachuk comes back and scores. You think, that's just maybe how things are going to go for the Bruins tonight. The Panthers are rested. The Bruins coming off that emotional victory over Toronto just 2 nights ago. Lo and behold, though, similar to what happened in Game 7 against the Toronto Maple Leafs, Florida scores, and then less than 2 minutes later, Morgan Geekie finds the back of the net and ties things up. Bruins take it from there. The next goal was just an absolute laser beam, beautiful shot by Mason Lohrei over Bobrovsky's right shoulder. Morgan Geekie had tied it up, just kind of getting to the net, getting to a rebound at the edge of the crease, shooting it over Bobrovsky, who is down on the ice. After that, Brandon Carlo made it 3-1 late in the second period, taking a cross-ice pass from Charlie Coyle and going bar down. Again, he missed the morning skate, did not arrive at the arena until after 6 p.m. due to the birth of his second child, Crew. And to see his face, Carlos said, and have a healthy wife and a healthy baby couldn't be more happy. And then, of course, scored the goal. Now, we'll talk about this more coming up, but there was a key moment in the third period as well that we'll discuss. But it was Justin Brazeau who made it 4-1 when the Florida Panthers were pressing so hard in the third period. They began outshooting Boston like 11-1 in the third period. Justin Brazeau getting a step on Air Ekblad, beating Bobrovsky, backhand shelf, which is now known as Brazeau shelf. And then it was Jake DeBrusk who scored on the empty net goal to make it 5-1. Jim Montgomery afterwards said the Bruins' confidence has gone to another level after pushing through the first round. That confidence makes you believe that you can do anything. It's a great place to be mentally. You could even see him coming into the building, giving the thumbs up. It wasn't a perfect game for the Bruins. It wasn't a clean game for the Bruins. There were some turnovers. One that led to the goal scored by Matthew Tkachuk. Not necessarily, it wasn't as dominant a game for the Bruins as the score would suggest. However, they made good on their opportunities and they have the 1-0 lead thanks to depth scoring. Now, that is so key for any team that has success in the playoffs is depth scoring. There was maybe one guy on the list that I mentioned of scorers who you would expect to come through in a game like this, and that was Jake DeBrusk, and his was the empty net goal. You had Morgan Geekie, who's been playing center lately, coming in, getting that huge goal, his third of the playoffs, I believe. You had Mason Lohrei, who had almost scored prior to Geekie's goal, just hitting the post with Bobrovsky down and out, coming back. This kid has no fear. His confidence, talking about confidence, it's just oozing through this guy right now. If you listen to the series preview podcast that I did with Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers, you would have heard me single out Mason Lohrei and Justin Brazeau as Bruins to watch in this series based on how they had come into the Toronto series, just oozing confidence. And lo and behold, you have Lohrei scoring the game winner, Brazeau with a massive insurance goal to make it 4-1 when the Florida Panthers were really pressing. And then Carlo with that big dad energy. His wife gave birth yesterday morning. He jumped on a plane. Apparently, he found out after Game 7 that his wife was going into labor. So he goes through the whole process, has very little sleep, makes the trip down, and just that adrenaline was pumping for Carlo as he made it to the rink on time, got some sleep on the plane, and scored a key goal for this team, earned the jacket and a puck for his efforts that he put in. And just a huge, huge goal for Brandon Carlo and the Boston Bruins. Definitely a special day for him. If there's a video going around of him coming in to the arena, everybody was so happy for him. He did get rocked pretty good behind the net at one point. I was a bit concerned considering his health history, but he has been so huge for the Bruins on the blue line, and it was great to see him score in that big moment. And congrats to the Carlo family on the birth of Crew. We'll continue to talk about this crew and a key moment and a key coaching decision by Jim Montgomery here as the podcast continues. All right, we got to take a time out here and talk about Monopoly Go. I know I've been talking about it a lot lately, but I just can't stop playing it. You can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. I have such fond memories of playing the classic board game as a kid in my basement. This experience is so unique and so fun, and there's always something cool to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. While you're on YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories. Can't miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, now we have had some moments where it's possible to be critical of Jim Montgomery in the playoffs. Back in the first round, there were some unnecessary changes that were made prior to game 5. Even last night, I wasn't super enthused about Patrick Brown being in the lineup. I know that he has a better face-off record perhaps than Jesper Boqvist, but that fourth line had been playing pretty good, and I didn't see much reason to break it up. There was one key moment, though, where Jim Montgomery got it so right, and it was when he called a timeout in the third period as the Bruins were being absolutely caved by the Florida Panthers. It was 3-1 at that point. That Brandon Carlo goal near the end of the second period was proving to be huge because it seemed as though the Florida Panthers were on the verge of pulling it back to within 1 on any given shift. And Jim Montgomery wisely, and coaches don't do this very often. You might see coaches take a timeout at the beginning of a power play or after a bunch of icings to give some guys a break, or late in the third period on a empty net situation. You don't really often see coaches take timeouts just in the middle of a period. And that's exactly what he did. And it proved to be such a wise decision because it gave the Bruins a chance to just settle down, take some deep breaths, refocus, and then shortly thereafter, the Justin Brazeau breakaway goal was scored to effectively ice the game for the Boston Bruins. Jim Montgomery showing real smarts on that decision, just recognizing that the Bruins were reeling a bit and calling that timeout in order to help his team regroup. And that's the kind of things that you love to see from your head coach. One, yes, he's been criticized after the loss last year to the Florida Panthers, certainly at times during the series against the Toronto Maple Leafs, but 4-goal win over the Florida Panthers makes you believe a bit in this team, even though, according to the head coach himself, the execution wasn't as good as it needs to be. There were a lot of mistakes, and if it's not for Jeremy Swayman, could have been a lot closer game and maybe not the outcome that the Bruins received. They didn't have enough scoring chances, Montgomery said. The score is not indicative of how the game went necessarily. And if you look at the underlying numbers, 5-on-5, the Panthers had 58.56 of the shot attempts, 75% 5-on-5 in the third period. The shots were 31-25 in favor of the Panthers. Scoring chances, they had 58% of them, 77% of the high danger scoring chances. And expected goals in this one was 65% for the Panthers in the third period. So you see that yeah, the Panthers really were pouring it on in the third. Score effects come into play there. If you're not familiar with score effects, it's basically the principle that the team that is up will sit back a bit and defend, while the other team who's down will go just all out and push the puck as much as possible in order to create some scoring chances and tie the game. Ice was severely tilted in the third period. The Bruins are on their heels a little bit. Thank goodness for Jeremy Swayman in net once again, who made some key saves for the Boston Bruins in that period. But Jim Montgomery calling that timeout was just so huge for the Boston Bruins and could have saved the game, really. Momentum was clearly on Florida's side. It felt like they were about to score at any moment. And Jim Montgomery using that timeout to settle down his team. Brad Marchand was even vocal during it. And then Justin Brazeau scores that breakaway goal shortly thereafter to help guide the team to victory. So full credit there to Jim Montgomery for that well-timed timeout. Again, the depth scoring was huge for the Boston Bruins in this one. Geekie, Lohrei, Brazeau, Carlo, and then Jake DeBrusk coming in with the empty netter. In all situations in this one, Florida had 72.55% of the shot attempts. They outshot the Bruins 39-29 overall. Scoring chances were 41-23. High danger chances were 17-12 in favor of the Panthers. If it wasn't for Jeremy Swayman, this could have been a completely different game, and that's been one of the big storylines for the Boston Bruins. And we're going to give Swayman some more due love here as the podcast continues. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, over-unders, player props, and more. And again, nail a winning $5 bet and you'll get $150 in bonus bets. All you have to do is visit fanduel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Jeremy Swayman last night once again was unbelievable for the Boston Bruins. Arguably the first star of the game, made 38 saves on 39 shots. And coming into the series, he had a .950 save percentage. He actually raised that last night to .955 with this .974 save percentage in the game against the Panthers last night. There was, some argument to be made that Linus Ullmark should get the start. Jeremy Swayman had just played a bunch of games in a row against the Toronto Maple Leafs, came up huge. It could have been tempting to go back to Linus Ullmark and give Swayman the night off, but they stuck with Swayman, and it paid off because this kid just looks unbeatable at the moment, unflappable. There was even a moment where there was a huge scrum in front of the net. There was opportunities for the Panthers to score, and you just see Swayman out there laughing with a smile on his face. And it was beautiful to see. And at this point, there's really no point going to Ullmark because Swayman has just been so good. There is an argument to be made once again to go back to Ullmark because the Bruins have a 1-0 lead. They've stolen a game on the road. maybe Swayman could use a rest. And really, there's no drop off in theory going to Ullmark. Ullmark was the better goalie down the stretch in the regular season. He's last year's Vezina Trophy winner. You can have full belief in Linus Ullmark, but until Swayman shows signs of slowing down, you got to keep him in there. Just keep rolling. You could say, oh, he needs the rest, but come on. This guy is what, 23, 24? He doesn't need rest. He's 25. Sorry. Just keep going. He's a young guy. He's got plenty of energy. He wants to be in there. Just keep rolling with Jeremy Swayman until it's warranted that he maybe needs a break. They have the 1-0 lead on the road. They've already taken care of business by stealing one on the road, taking away home ice advantage. They need 3 more wins. They have 3 home games in order to do so, if even necessary. Just keep going with Jeremy Swayman because he is the man at the moment. There was the whole question of rest versus rust coming into last night's game, with the Panthers having a few days off between their series with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Bruins having played just on Saturday. They looked really good coming in, much better than they did in some of the previous games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. There was some rust on the Panthers' part, although the Bruins had 13 giveaways compared to only 11 for the Panthers. The Bruins, however, leading in blocked shots by a margin of 26-11. They had 71 hits compared to 55 for the Panthers. Special teams, not really a factor in this one, as neither team was able to score on the power play. The Bruins, though, speaking of Jim Montgomery and that well-timed timeout, they just have to cut down on these too many men penalties. You can argue that puck over the glass is one of the worst penalties, but too many men, for me, that's just inexcusable. It's happened 4 times already in the playoffs. Just get the right guys on the ice. It's not hard to count to 5 or 4 or how many guys are supposed to be on the ice. Just make the right changes, and we got to cut down. You can't give the other team that kind of opportunity, especially in the playoffs. The Bruins were caved in faceoffs, despite bringing Patrick Brown in, 58.7 compared to 41.3. Perhaps the Brown move didn't really pay off. He only played 8 minutes and 27 seconds, lowest on the Bruins. He took a penalty. I wouldn't be opposed to making another change and removing him from the lineup. Pavel Zacha led the way with 2 assists. Mason Lohrei with a goal and an assist as well. Both guys had 2 points. Brandon Carlo with the goal. Parker Witherspoon with his first career playoff point as well, an assist. And then you also got contributions up and down the lineup. Frederick with an assist. Coyle with an assist. James Van Riemsdyk with an assist. Marchand, DeBrusk, Pasternak also chipping in. And it was Pasternak who led the way with 4 shots on goal for the Bruins, although it seemed like he had a couple to open the game and then they didn't count those. So I'm not sure if that 4 includes that, but whatever. Patrick Brown did lead the way with 9 hits for the Bruins. Derek Forbort was able to return to the lineup as well. He played 18 minutes, 1 shot, 7 hits. He was a +2, and I thought he played pretty well for not having been on the ice for quite some time. Came at the expense of Kevin Shattenkirk on the blue line. So we'll see if those pairings remain intact and if there's any changes for game 2 here as we look ahead to that, which is tomorrow night, Wednesday. On tomorrow's episode, we'll preview game 2, bring you all the latest on the black and gold, but full credit to the depth scoring, that big dad energy from Brandon Carlo, and of course, Jeremy Swayman for an unbelievable performance once again. Jim Montgomery proving that he is learning and making some good decisions as Bruins head coach in the playoffs. 1 game down against the Panthers, hopefully 3 more to come. And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on the other Eastern Conference playoff series, which resumes tonight. Carolina, New York. The Rangers up 1-0 in that one. Thanks so much for taking some time to listen today, friends. Please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again here tomorrow on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.